boy, it's Friday night, and like John Kennedy says, let's go! The Skeptical Health Bar is open. Oh my gosh, I'm excited. I'm so excited because, it's the Skeptical Health Bar. I get excited. It's fun. It's Friday night. We're gonna hang out. We have a guest tonight. I can't wait to get to talk to him and discuss some critical thinking. Get into it, into like nitty gritty, down and dirty with critical thinking. I love that. I'm surprised I got all that out without stuttering.
Me too.
All right, Donna's here. Everyone say hi to Donna.
Hi guys. I'm here.
Zoinks. Yeah, you see that? I got my new license plate, my Scooby-Doo inspired license plate back there. All right. So, let's see. What do we got? We got to go over the rules. We got a show tonight. We got to go over the rules. I got to find the rules. Where are they? I lost them. There they are. Okay. So, rule number 1 for everyone. You are welcome to ask questions tonight. Because we have a guest and we're keeping with the format, we're going to chat for an hour. Me and the guest are going to chat for an hour. Then an hour.
Oh, a pee break and then questions?
Pee break and then questions.
Hour. Sorry.
And then, the second hour, we're going to take your questions. So feel free to fire them off throughout the night, and Donna will save them for later, and we'll get to them. Rule number 2 is that I don't know everything, and I'm pretty sure my guest does not know everything either.
I do.
Divine Donna does. But we will try to answer your questions. If we have time and it's within reason, we'll look it up because we have screens on either side and we can look stuff up and learn together. Ooh, I love that. But we are not afraid to say I don't know. So that might happen. Rule number 3 is we follow the Patrick Swayze rule here. You are welcome to get in the chat room and you can discuss and debate. You can disagree, but please keep it civil. Yeah, so be kind. Rewind. Yeah. Oh, who's old enough for that? Who remembers that?
Everybody in the chat room does. I know how old
every
y'all
Blockbuster membership. But yeah, I totally lost my train of thought.
Be kind.
Yes, don't fight. No name calling. No bashing like that, because if you do, Donna will boot your ass out of there, and you just won't be able to come back. So,
that would be really sad.
Rule number 4 is that if you have a question, please put a Q in front of it. That makes it easier for Donna to pick them out and save them for later. And
John Kennedy, I think Kenny still has his Blockbuster card too.
I do. I actually do. It's under the desk. I have one of the bins there, and it's still there. Blockbuster. Damn. And my favorite rule of all, drink up. Because we got some rum going.
Whatever you got going on. I'm only doing lemonade tonight.
I got rum. Donna's got lemonade.
Yeah.
I know some people out there have other things. So let me switch this up. Let me go to my special guest thing and then bring all my special guests. It is... Wait a minute. Hold it. There he is, Jon Guy. Or as we call him, because he's a local now, John without an H part 2. So
yeah, because who would know? We would end up with 2 of them.
I know, 2 Johns without an H. I mean, what the hell?
One of them is a John Michael.
John Michael, yeah, he's an old friend of mine. I've known him for years and years, and we're actually going to hang out. John Michael is coming up with his crew to Fort Mifflin, and I'm going to hang out with them for a little bit overnight at the haunted Fort Mifflin. See what happens.
I like John Kennedy's comment in the chat. He said the missing H must be hair.
You're a local when people can make fun of you like that.
Yeah, I like it.
You guys are awesome. We shall take over the world. All right, John without an H part 2. First question for every guest. What is your origin story? Tell us about who you are.
Well, I grew up in California, in the Bay Area, Oakland, San Leandro, Castro Valley area. Went to school there for the most part. I was a terrible kid, as my mom would attest to. I think most courts in the Bay Area would attest to that as well. I had kind of a rough start growing up. mostly self-inflicted. I got involved with a lot of bad stuff and bad people, and did basically what you could say led a life of crime until I was an adult. So I spent a lot of time in group homes and juvenile hall, and bouncing all over the state between one facility or the next, and kind of had enough of that when I turned 18 and wanted to, clean up and just kind of, go with the flow. And that didn't really work out either.
Oh.
I moved to Wyoming to try to, get a fresh start or whatever.
Right.
But you know how they say, wherever you go, there you are. And I found myself the same person in a different town, and got into some trouble, and ended up going to prison over it.
Okay. And how old were you then?
I was 19 when I went to prison.
19. Wow. And I mean, it's going to come up, so I might as well address it. Like, can you tell us what happened?
So if I'm going to be completely honest about what happened, you're going to have to take a really fragmented memory of it, because not just because of, how bad memories are in general, but
Right.
I lied about it for like 10 years. Right. So I pled not guilty. The evidence against me was really thin. I was in Wyoming. Everybody I knew was in California, so I couldn't really tell anybody over the phone or through the mail because it's monitored. And I certainly wasn't going to tell anyone in jail. So I just ran with the story that I was not guilty for for about 10 years.
Wow.
And my plan was that I wasn't going to say anything until all my appeals to the courts had been exhausted. And I did that, and I didn't tell anybody for 10 years.
Wow.
And then once my final appeal was exhausted, there was, a good handful of people who had been loyal supporters from day one. And I penned them out like 15-page letters kind of explaining why I didn't tell them and how I felt about not telling them and everything. So anyway, all that's just to tell you to take this story with a grain of salt, because I don't know how accurate it is,
Right.
But basically what happened was my roommate and I were at a party. We were drinking. We ended up leaving that party, and on the way home, he was going to go show me where this tattoo shop was in town. And we got into an altercation with some guys on the way home, going towards this tattoo shop. And so I don't know, to kind of try to compress everything into something really quick and simple.
Right.
One of the guys that we were in conflict with, as I was passing him, I had a knife in my hand, and I reached around and I stabbed him as I was walking past him. So he kind of gave me this weird, like, quizzical look, like he didn't really know what happened. And he kept walking, and nobody said anything that like they saw me do it, or, oh my God, that guy's got a knife, or he just hit that guy, or anything. So I kind of just closed my knife and put it in my pocket. And there was kind of a melee. As that guy walked past me, I kind of saw that my buddy had a little semicircle of people around him. So I walked over there to kind of,
Get
at least
in the crowd.
next to him.
Right.
If we were going to get, there's quite a few of them. There was only 2 of us, but there was about 15 or 20 of them.
Okay.
And as I was going over there, somebody grabbed me by the arm and said, "Hey, the smart thing to do is grab your friend, get in the car, and get the fuck out of here." And that was a solid plan to me. It was either that or, 20 guys were going to beat the crap out of us.
Right, right.
So, so we got in the car and took off, and I got arrested about 2 hours later, I think.
Mm-hmm.
The police had put out an APB on the vehicle. They saw the vehicle in the driveway, surrounded the house, and that was a wrap.
Okay. So did this? So the idea of this book on critical thinking, and that's what initially we started talking about. This is what interested me, and I think you reached out to me and told me you were putting this book out. It's available for pre-order. It's about critical thinking, and we talked a little bit more. So did this, I guess, to
How
put it
did
bluntly,
it come out?
did did the time you spent in prison, was that how this came about, or did you have this idea beforehand?
No, I didn't even know what the topic was beforehand. And I certainly wasn't a critical thinker. You know,
Well,
I was probably typical in that I believed in, you know, karma and ESP and ghosts and the afterlife and you know, things that many people believe in. And I'm pretty sure I saw a UFO one time when I was a kid, and you know, so things like that. So I would say probably about maybe 7-8 years into my sentence, I started reading. Well, I mean, I read the whole time, but I started reading like science and philosophy and biology and cosmology and you know, evolution and books on physics or, you know, whatever. And that kind of got me introduced to like the Skeptical Inquirer and Skeptic Magazine and Free Inquiry. And I really loved it. I really enjoyed it. I think what probably took it off was the first really serious book I read, I think, was An Atheist Manifesto by Michael Onfray.
Oh.
And it was a cool book. And I remember my mom telling me a long time ago that, you know, reading is great. My mom's a big reader, you know, and she said reading is great, but you got to find what you like to read. Otherwise, you ain't gonna like it, you know.
I totally agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I really liked that. And then I started getting into Richard Dawkins. I just happened to be in the library and I saw The Selfish Gene on the shelf, and I had never read anything by him, but I'd heard his name a lot. So I picked it up and I was taken aback by it. You know, I was like, whoa, this is what smart people write about. Cool. I like this. You know, so, and then of course from there, I got into like Sam Harris and Christopher Hitchens and Daniel Dennett and, you know, the Four Horsemen. And then that kind of branched off into reading like Michael Shermer and, you know, the popular skeptics. Wow. And yeah, it just kind of took off from there. So as far as the book goes, I watched Stephen Novella from
Skeptic's Guide to the Universe. Yeah,
love that.
Just by chance, I was trying to get a lot of great courses into the facility I was at, and I did a proposal, and they approved it. And the education manager there bought like, I think 20 great courses, and one of them happened to be Novella's Your Deceptive Mind. And yeah, so I just got lucky in that regard, and I watched it a couple of times, and I went, wow, why don't we teach this stuff to prisoners? Why don't we have something like this, like a little curriculum, you know?
Right.
And so I thought, well, I've read quite a few books, and I've been subscribing to Skeptical Inquirer and Skeptic and The Skeptic out of Australia for a while. And, and I know this topic. I can write this book. You know,
I'm like pointing like Australia, like it's right over there.
It's right there. You know,
it's right around the corner.
Right yonder.
Down under.
And so I thought, 6 months, I'll have this book whipped. I know this topic pretty well. And then I started writing it, and I realized that I didn't know shit about the topic, right? How it normally goes. So I just kind of delved in. I got my hands on, I think almost every book that was written on it, on the topic. You know, I mean, I say that, sparingly, but quite a few. You know, I put about 3 years into that book, and probably, I don't know how many I read. I probably read somewhere in the range of 200 books and maybe 10,000 articles writing it. So, and in doing so, realized I really didn't know shit to begin with. You know?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big topic when you're talking about critical thinking, and it's something that comes up often. Where I talk about it. We talk about it on this show all the time. Almost every episode, it comes up. But for someone that's not used to talking about it or dealing with it or thinking critically, when they come up to you and say, well, what does that mean? I'm like, well, Damn. Let me think about this. It's because it's very difficult to explain. It's something that like it's first of all, it's learned. It's a learned skill. It's definitely a learned skill. And to describe it takes a little bit more than just like, oh, you just think critically. You're just critical of stuff. What the fuck does that mean? You got to really get into it. So I understand where you're coming from with that.
Yeah, and I think in most fields, whether you're talking about psychology or specific fields in psychology, like people who study schizophrenia or beliefs or whatever it is, and yes, somebody, James Alcock, somebody who studied belief, wrote the book on it, whatever, ask him, well, what is belief? How do you define belief? He might say, I don't know. You spent 40 years researching this and you don't know. And it's the same thing with critical thinking too. It's like, how do you pin it down? I mean, if you read what is it, the National Foundation for Critical Thinking, their definition is like, it's like 9 sentences in one, and they're like, oh yeah, I understood that. Sure.
Yeah. I did the same thing. I read their website and I was like, I still don't know what it means.
Yeah, it's hard to pin down.
That confused me even more. So I had to go through other books, and I'm the same way. I mean, I as soon as I see a book or like you've mentioned a book, people mention anything, I write it down, and I usually order it on Amazon right after the show. But I have dozens of books back here on critical thinking, and how to think and why to think, and it's just you get all these different definitions, and you kind of have to piece together a Frankenstein definition of what it means and go with it. But yeah, it takes a lot. It's not just like reading one book. You have to read book after book after book, and you get little bits and pieces from everyone that you read. And that's the sense I got from you, because I was lucky enough, so everyone understands. Today, I reached out and I asked about a table of contents for the book because it's not out yet, and you were nice enough to send me the first chapter of it, so I got to read through it and get your style and your general style of writing and how you do it. And I was like, oh, well, this is I can totally relate because you pull from so many different sources, and that's what you have to do. You really have to pull from so many places, and it's hard to nail down like one source that's like, oh, I just read this book. No. When people ask, what book do you recommend for this? It's like, well, I got a list, and I usually
I know.
I have a pile. It's not like one book. I can't just tell you one book to read. It's dozens that this comes from. So you're big into skepticism. You're big in the science now. Tell me, what does critical thinking mean to you?
I think it's about metacognition, right? About, self-awareness of our own limitations and the flaws of our minds and how they operate. It's a lot of things. It has to do with understanding source credibility and how to weigh evidence and what does it mean to know something? What does it mean to believe something? And then, you can get into the psychology and the philosophy behind both of those. So, yeah, I think it's just a hyper awareness of many different facets of how we view the world. Critical thinking has to include some sort of understanding of like basic logic, right? How does basic logic work? Right? Not folk logic, not the stuff that seems logical to us, but like, basic logic. What is an inductive argument? What is a deductive argument? What do those arguments do? How do they work? How do they operate? And then how do you identify logical fallacies, how in ourselves and in others? Because we know that it's way harder for us to recognize them in ourselves than it is to point out somebody else's mistakes, right?
Yep. It's always somebody else.
Yeah,
It's always somebody else that's wrong. They're wrong. I'm right.
Yeah, exactly. And
He's
that's
got
how
a shirt that says so.
I do have a shirt that says that.
I've got a similar one. I'm not arguing with you. I'm explaining how I'm right.
Exactly. That's what it says. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's so true. And we've talked about this before, where recognizing logical fallacies is easy when you're doing it from other people. Like when you're looking at their argument, when you're listening to their argument, you can pick them out. And when you start studying all the fallacies, when you start learning them, it's so easy. You're like, oh, that's ad hominem. Oh, that's ad hoc post hoc. That's this. That's a red herring. You can point them out, and you start being a dick about it because you're pointing them out all the time, and that becomes your argument.
Yeah.
And instead, you're not looking at yourself. And that's the hardest part. And once that started happening, once I started realizing, like, you get that inner voice going, hey, jackass, you're doing the same thing you're yelling at them for.
Yeah.
And start realizing, oh, crap, you know what? And I think there was a point there, and I still do it, where I'm debating someone and I pause because I'm either about to say something that's a fallacy or I'm already in there. And I start saying it and I stop because I'm like, oh shit, no, I got to rephrase this. I gotta come at this differently because I know I'm screwing up. And I know I've said that sometimes where I tell the person and they don't have any idea what's going on. They're looking at me like, why did he stop yelling? I'm like, look, I'm wrong here. I'm wrong in my argument. I need to rethink this. So Your turn. Go ahead, talk. Let me think about this.
Yeah, one of the things that I experienced going through the manuscript of my book was like, when you're deep into a project, it's really hard to step back from it and evaluate it objectively. And I recently had to go through the whole thing to get it, finalized and kind of polished up and submitted back to the editor. And there were some fallacies in there that I recognized that I was committing, and I had to go, oh shit, I need to clean this up because like I said, it's really hard to identify it in ourselves.
Right.
Because, we have these self-serving biases that, tell us that we're great at everything, right?
Right.
We're great and we're smart and we can't be fooled. And, our tastes in things are better than everybody else's. And, we're more logical than other people. And,
our opinion is not subjective. Your
not
opinion
at all.
is subjective.
Yeah, not at all. And I think that really leads to kind of a logical trap that people find themselves in, right? So if you genuinely believe that, I'm a smart, moral, rational person, then if you disagree with me, then you must be unsmart, immoral, or irrational, right? So that kind of insulates us from any kind of contrary arguments or counter informations or discussions that anybody else wants to have with us, because if they disagree with us, we take it as kind of a personal slight against our character or our beliefs, which we're really possessive about, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think
that's why me and Kenny don't talk. No.
What's that?
That's why me and Kenny don't talk.
We've learned the secret of communication in marriage.
Sometimes
you just shut up.
We start a conversation and I know where it's going and I'm like, nope, I'm not going there. And I fucking walk away because I'm not doing it. I know exactly what you're talking about, Jon Guy.
No, that's one of those topics that you just don't continue with.
Yeah,
exactly. You know what?
Let's move on. Let's watch TV.
Let's agree to disagree.
That'll make for a more peaceful night. Let's just watch a movie or something. A non-confrontational movie. But yeah, I get it. All right, so I love this conversation so far. We're having so much fun. So you've kind of gave your take on critical thinking, and do you have any examples? I know this is probably putting you on the spot, but any examples how you can use it in everyday life? Because it's not just like I usually use it and focus on extraordinary claims, like really let's get into it, the details. But critical thinking is something that we can use every day in literally every decision we make. we can
Yeah.
use it. So what can you tell us about that? Any examples?
So part of the whole concept of critical thinking is metacognition, being aware of your own mental abilities and shortcomings, right?
Right.
And part of that is, as you said, it's a learned skill. You have to learn about these things. They don't just come intuitively to us, right? So anchoring, right? If you are into critical thinking, if you're into psychology, you're going to come across the anchoring effect, or the anchoring heuristic, which is a horrible word. It actually shares its root with the word eureka, right? But it's still a horrible word. Anchoring, right? The anchoring effect. Basically what it is it's a bias that we have where when we learn something about anything, we tend to base our judgments of that thing off of that first bit of information that we received about it. So, for example, let's say you go to the store to buy, you need a white t-shirt, right? For an occasion. And you go in there and you see 3 for $10. Well, then you're anchored to the deal, right? 3 for $10, but you don't need 3. You only need 1. You went in there to spend, $4 or whatever. But now they got you wrapped into the deal, 3 for $10. You're anchored to that first thing they offered you. And then you're going to base any judgment you make about buying that shirt off of that deal. Well, if I only buy 1 for $4, then I'm really losing, because if I bought 3, then
right, man.
Get me every time.
Every time, right?
I'm like, yeah, I can do a shirt. I can make a shirt that says a really offensive saying.
Yeah. Like, I'll take 3.
I'll take 3.
So the anchoring heuristic is really profound, right? So there's a study done, I think it was done in the 80s, where this restaurant, they took a menu, right? And they duplicated their menu, and everything was exactly the same in this menu, except for at the top of one of them, they sold a Maserati for $300,000, right? And at a restaurant, nobody's buying a Maserati for $300,000 at a restaurant, right?
Right.
But what this study showed was that people who got the Maserati menu tended to spend a lot more money than the people who didn't get the Maserati menu, is because they're anchoring to that first bit of information. So this, seemingly insignificant number has this subconscious effect on us where we want to, we're not necessarily want to, but where we, a $40 steak doesn't look very expensive next to a $300,000 Maserati.
Right.
Whereas, if you got your menu full of, items that are, $25, and then you see a $40 steak, that $40 steak looks a lot more expensive, and you're less inclined to buy it.
Right.
Wow. That's a cool study. Well, that's why I'm always selling shit like 2 for 2.
Yeah,
12
you
for
get
10,
that
2
deal.
for 15.
Yeah, if that's your first. I mean, you're unconsciously taking advantage of that fallacy because you offered a deal, and
people
if you
usually
get them
take
first,
it. Yeah.
You're like, oh, well, they're 2 for $5, but if you buy 1, it's $4.
Right.
So you get that extra dollar. You're making money off of it. I mean, that's a marketing tactic. And marketing, I mean, shit, they do that all the time.
Robert in the chat room says, I bought the 3-pack of Maseratis.
Oh, now.
That's awesome.
Robert, we need to be friends.
Yes. We talked about the Patreon.
Oh, man. So so your book, what's the name of the book?
Think Straight, an owner's manual for the mind.
Okay. So I put the link in the chat room already. So that's for the pre-orders for Amazon. And it says, it looks like it's going to be available August 23rd.
Yeah, I think that's fake news.
Okay.
I think it is. My editors are telling me July, so I don't know how it got up there as August.
Okay.
And then pre-orders, it's my understanding that pre-orders should come out before the main release. So
right.
I don't know.
Cool.
I don't know if that's true or not.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, it said this. Well, maybe it's because of Amazon. Maybe it's not necessarily like when it's going to be released by Prometheus, but when Amazon will have it in stock and then can pass it
Oh,
along to everyone
maybe.
that buy
Yeah.
because it
It
says
could
this
be.
title
I mean, it
will
says
be
it says August 2030 on the internet, so it has to be true.
yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, shit.
Shit. Was it Googled?
In your research, when you were researching this book, I'm curious, like whose work did you admire the most? Like whose work really stood out, and who became like more of a virtual mentor to you?
Are you thinking as far as the topic of critical thinking goes, or just in general?
In
Like
general,
science?
both. Let's go with critical thinking first.
Okay, so critical thinking, I think Guy P. Harrison has to be number one, right? His style is it's so accessible, and he writes with such elegant prose that it's kind of hard not to try to mimic him when you're writing. He just has just such a great way of explaining things, and his examples are really comprehensible. And I really took to his work. Terrence Hines was another one. I really enjoyed Terrence Hines. Schick and Vaughn, they wrote How to Think About Weird Things.
Yeah, we have that book. Yeah.
So I read that book probably like I had a rough draft of like 7 or 8 chapters when I read Schick and Vaughn's book. And I went, damn it, they already wrote my book. Yeah, there was that. I would say probably Michael Shermer too. Michael Shermer has I think I've read every one of his books. Maybe not 1 or 2, but he has a really good style. So as far as critical thinking, I would say those authors are probably my go-to.
Okay. And what about in general? Like general topics?
Yeah, like science communication, I'm huge on Carl Sagan. Love his work. Absolutely phenomenal human, phenomenal writer.
He's very elegant. He's very. It's just like you read his work and it just flows.
Yeah.
From
prison, Carl Sagan had a way of taking me out of there. Because the way he writes, he paints a picture of how the universe works and how to appreciate it for what it is, right? Douglas Adams had that famous quote, isn't it enough for a garden to be beautiful without thinking that there's little fairies living at the bottom of it, And Carl Sagan has a really good way of bringing that to life, just painting the picture of like, where we are in this universe and how do things work. And it's just really inspiring. I really loved his work. Richard Dawkins, he does a great job of communicating science to lay audiences. Neil deGrasse Tyson, love Neil deGrasse Tyson's work. I've read quite a few books by Lawrence Krauss. I was a big fan of his. I don't know. There's so many. It's hard to pin them down.
But that's good. I mean, you rattled off a good list of authors there. I mean, that amazing work. So I love it. What about fringe topics, like paranormal topics? I noticed that you touched, at least on the first chapter, you touched on psychics and getting into some of the harm that can be done by psychics. So I guess, and I haven't been privy to the rest of the book, so I don't know what else you get into. But I do have, I think I read somewhere that you were going to get into hot reading and cold reading. I'm not sure, but so when it comes to fringe topics like ghosts or UFOs or psychics or cryptids and stuff, like which one fascinates you the most?
Probably David Icke. Okay. Are you familiar with David Icke?
I don't think so.
So he writes these giant, like 500-page books on the reptilian overlord.
Wow.
And
wow,
it's serious, right? So he knows everything. I know you said earlier that nobody knows everything, but he really does. He knows everything. And it's really fascinating. I had to read a couple of his books just to kind of write apart that kind of what they say in science is, you read 30 papers so you can write 2 sentences.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
I read 2 of his books so I could write a paragraph, but that's how it goes. But I don't know if he's the king in that world, but he's pretty close. He knows more than Alex Jones for sure. And he does, people who follow these arguments are, they're just lapsing in critical thinking skills, because David Icke wants you to believe that there's this giant, conspiracy where, lizard people took over the planet and, enslaved us by manipulating our DNA, and they control world governments and, everything from, vaccines to global warming, and they have their hands in all this stuff, and they're pretty much omnipotent, omniscient beings that control everything, right? And I think anybody who's ever worked on a project with more than 20 people knows that this is just not possible, right? You can't get 20 people to get along on anything, right?
Yeah.
But then he, the way he presents his arguments, it's like he'll cherry pick, little bits and pieces of documents from the CIA or the FBI, and he'll say, see, this proves my claim. And then 2 sentences later, tell you all about why you shouldn't trust the CIA or the FBI.
Yeah.
Right.
Unless you can cherry pick something that says something that you agree with, right?
Yeah.
So, and then of course, on the things that he can't support with, FBI documents, I, Hillary Clinton, am a lizard person, and I am, running a child sex trafficking ring out of a pizza shop in New Jersey or whatever.
Yeah.
He doesn't have that. So you just have to trust him that his sources are trustworthy and accurate and reliable. And people believe this. They don't have these kind of skeptical alarm bells that people with training in critical thinking do to go, hold on a second, yeah, Pizzagate, right?
Pizzagate, yeah.
Yeah.
So with a basement that didn't have a basement.
and he didn't stop believing that there was he got there, he fired off a shot with a rifle, scared the crap out of a bunch of people, and he still wasn't convinced that it wasn't going on. And well, just because I didn't discover it doesn't prove it wasn't happening.
Right. Jackass. Total jackass. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the critical thinking skills. Bring it back to what the book is about. And you touched on a little bit about common questions. Let me get this right. Common questions that the skeptical scrutiny requires when dealing with the search for truth. There were certain questions that you need to ask, and you gave a few. Do you remember what they were?
Probably not verbatim, but
okay.
Yeah.
Right. What are questions we ask?
Yeah. How do we know? Right. That's probably the first one.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's probably the first question you should ask. How do we know? Where are we getting our information from?
Right.
Where are they getting their information from? How do we know we can trust that as a reliable source of information?
Right.
We can return to David Icke. Okay, let's say we trust David Icke, and what he's telling us is that, Bill Clinton orchestrated 9/11, right? But how does David Icke know? How can we trust that David Icke has the the skills in media literacy or information literacy to understand that the information he's getting is correct? Maybe he's getting his information from a reptilian who's trying to lead everybody astray. We don't know that. If the reptilians are as powerful as we think that as he says they are, then they could have been duping him from the start.
Right.
So how do we know that David Icke knows what he's talking about?
Yeah, David Icke. Damn it. Lizard people.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I think they had a documentary on that in the 80s or 90s. It was called V, right? Right? Anybody get that reference? V.
I didn't see it.
Oh my God. V. It was like a mini series with Mark Singer. Oh, and the aliens came down and they looked like us, but then they ripped off their fake skin and they were lizards underneath.
See?
Oh
See,
my
so-
God!
so
I
what-
gotta send you a link.
So what they're going to tell you is that that's the kind of stuff that reptilians do to prime us for their actual coming, right? So they're kind of just, throwing a little bit out here and there so that, when we are really ready to understand it, then
Right.
we won't be so shocked by it. Like it matters. Like anybody, if they're so damn powerful, why don't they just rule by force? Why do they have to be secretive Illuminati and shit,
Yeah. Why bother going through all this trouble of playing chess where you can just come down and take over?
Yeah,
I mean-
what kind of reptilian overlord wants to wear a skin suit all the time? I mean,
It's got to
Just come
start
out with it.
smelling. Yeah. But I like how your approach is. Like these are important questions. How do you know the information? And citing your sources. What sources are being used, and do they provide information to check those sources? That's important. One of the things that I always check when I get a new book or someone sends a documentary or something, like, are there any kind of references? Is there anything with if you want to find out more information about these topics, check here. Like books, especially. I mean, it's if I open a book that's gives the impression it's very sciencey, if it doesn't have any references or citations in it, I put it back down. I don't want it, because it's not doing what it's supposed to. It's not going to let me check up on your information and make sure that you're telling me the truth, or at least giving me proper retelling of information that I can check for myself and make sure, it's legit, or as legit as possible. So
yeah.
these are good questions. And
And you can be fooled by that kind of stuff too, because there's
Yeah.
predatory publications. A lot of people, even academics in colleges, have no idea what a predatory publication is because they were never taught that that's a real thing. So, predatory publications are basically, they're basically journals that they pretend to be scientific peer-reviewed journals, but they don't follow the process of scientific peer review like they do. Basically, they have an interest in publishing anything because people pay them to publish their material, and researchers, unaware that this is a predatory journal, the saying publish or perish, right? They want to get their information out there. They want to get cited. They want to get credible. And then these predatory journals have really sophisticated sounding names that people like you and I, who don't understand those kinds of things, it sounds legitimate. The American Cancer Journal of Cancer Research, quack journal, completely. But they have these sophisticated sounding names, and then they'll market themselves as a peer-reviewed journal, but then they don't follow through with the actual steps of peer review and how that's gone through from the beginning to end. They're just selling it as that, when then they're not really following through.
Yeah. And there's lists out there, and I'll look them up. I'm going to make a note of it just to look them up, because I know there's lists out there that tell you all of these quack websites that are just not legit. They do exactly what you're telling us, that it's bullshit articles or papers that they put out with that air of, it's pretty much homeopathic scientific papers. That's what it really comes down to.
Right. It's the watered down version.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Speaking of homeopathy.
Oh, yes.
Hey,
What do you
so
got?
I got myself a homeopathic drink tonight. I bought this for this occasion. You inspired me. You did a show, I think, what was it, about a month ago or so, where you diluted some rum and tried to
Yeah.
With Nick Little, yeah.
Yeah, so I went ahead and got
Oh.
Rabbit Hole.
Rabbit. Oh, get out.
Wow.
It's a bottle of Rabbit Hole whiskey.
Oh.
Okay.
So my thinking was that if homeopathy works and I dilute the crap out of this, I'll never go down the rabbit hole again, right? Because right?
I love it. I love it.
Oh.
I love it.
So cheers to that.
Cheers. Woohoo!
if I don't ever go down the rabbit hole again, then we know homeopathy works.
Works.
Yeah. I'm still waiting for it to work. And did I show the bottle last time? Did I show this little bottle?
Oh, I know. Yeah, I think you did. Yeah, because we had the little.
There's
label
the rest of my homeopathic rum.
You have to let it.
Yeah.
You can't really see.
I think it did work. The pictures Donna posted of you after the show that night showed that it really did work.
He was pretty messed up, man. I had to get over that show.
Well, this was supposed to cure me.
Yeah, it didn't cure him.
And it didn't work. I was still messed up.
Yeah, you were wasted.
The next morning, he was still messed up.
Next morning was horrible.
No, I think you just got that one wrong. It gets more intense the more diluted it is.
Yeah.
So the actual when you read the, I don't know, I forget what they're called, tenets. It's like rule number 1 is that the more diluted it is, the more potent it is. So it's not really clear on how powerful.
That's the law of infinitesimals.
Yes, there you go. And then the second one is the like cures like.
Yeah, the law of similarities.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's that one always got me because like the drug that the alternative drug that we were talking about on that show with Nick Little, he was talking, it was the duck liver, right? It was duck liver. That was the active ingredient. And under the law there that like cures like, I don't understand what's going on because duck liver, it's sold in stores. You can buy it and eat it. And it does not give you flu-like symptoms. So I don't understand why that would be the like cures like if it doesn't actually give you the symptoms that it's claiming to be cured.
Maybe it's supposed to cure you from quackery or something.
It's curing you from money in your wallet.
Exactly.
That's all.
That's another good point. And you asked earlier, how do you apply critical thinking to everyday life? Not buying bullshit medicine like homeopathy or naturopathy or functional medicine or chiropractic or this is just nonsense. There's no who said it first. I think in my book I quoted it from Paul Offit, but I don't know who said it first, that there's no alternative to medicine. There's just medicine that works and medicine that doesn't, right? So the alternative
you either have medicine or you don't.
The alternative to medicine is something that doesn't work by definition, right? That's exactly how it's defined. So learning about things like homeopathy can definitely prevent you from wasting money on these things. Nick Little, you had him on your show a few weeks ago, and he's got a lawsuit against CVS and Walgreens for marketing homeopathic drugs, or I'm not going to call them that, concoctions, right? In similar packaging and with similar labels and on the same shelving as legitimate medicine that's been vetted and tested and empirically demonstrated to work. And we can't tell the difference. Consumers do not know how to tell the difference. And I remember I asked Nick Little, and he joked about dodging the question about what the difference is between FDA approved and FDA regulated. So a lot of these homeopathic medicines will have FDA regulated on the package. And all this means, it gives kind of the imprimatur of having some sort of legitimacy behind it. But all that means is if there's some sort of complaint lodged against this particular homeopathic concoction, then the FDA will step in and investigate it. It doesn't mean it's been vetted. It doesn't mean it's gone through clinical trials. It just means that if something comes up, which chances are there's not, because it's water, right? It's sugar water. Sugar pills are water. They'll investigate it. But it's a completely deregulated industry. So, screw ups in manufacturing happen. I remember reading a case where a homeopathic company took over an old walnut making factory, and some kids had some severe allergic reactions to a homeopathic concoction because it had trace amounts of walnut oil in it. and they got really sick because it's not regulated. They don't have the FDA or any regulators going in there and inspecting their facilities or doing any of that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's how I understand it so far, and it's basically it is a sugar pill for the most part that I've seen. When you read the ingredients, the total weight of the inactive ingredients, which is usually sugar, matches the total weight of the entire pill, and at best, what happens is they take that pill and they take a drop, literally a dropper, and they put a drop of the solution, the highly diluted solution, which is usually 200C, which means there's nothing left of the original content or the original ingredient in that. And that's what they're selling. And it's oh my God, it's such bullshit. And they sell it. I mean, I really want to just go buy a bottle of sugar pills and then up the price 100% and then just start selling it, because I mean, like you said, it's not regulated. They can say whatever they want as long as they word it correct. They can't say whatever they want. They have to word it correctly. And as you mentioned, the problem is that it's sold right next to regular medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And after that show, we went to CVS and we filmed. We walked in and I filmed down the aisle, and there you go. You have cold medicine, like science-based cold medicine, and then right next to it was the homeopathic stuff. Same kind of boxes. You flip them over, same design on the back with active ingredients, inactive ingredients, uses, cautions, stuff like that. But it looks the same. If you weren't aware of the marketing strategies, if you weren't aware that it was so ineffective, you would pick this up and think, oh, well, you know what? This works the same, and maybe I get more pills than this science-based stuff. I'll just take this because it's a better deal.
And it also appeals to people who, tend to think that, we want to eliminate gluten from our lives, and GMOs are terrible, and
Right.
all natural means all great or whatever, and the homeopathy industry tends to market to those people. So they'll put that on their labels, GMO free. No, you got GMO free water. I mean, congratulations, what does that even mean, but that's kind of the audience that they're pandering to. And without a basic understanding of how these things work, homeopathy has not changed in 200 years. Samuel Hahnemann invented the law of infinitesimals and the law of similarities in like the 1800s, and homeopaths today believe the same exact thing, which is one of the markers of a pseudoscience is its failure to progress. It makes it, I mean, if homeopathy did what it claimed to do, we wouldn't have cancer anymore. We wouldn't have tuberculosis or anything. We'd be superhumans.
I would like that.
Well, the rest of you, we're already superhuman.
Superhuman. I would like that. Start flying around. All right, we're getting close. We're a couple minutes from our pee break. So I wanted to touch real quick on one or two things here. Let's see. You mentioned in your book, quote, "Without an obvious reason to doubt our senses, we treat the information they bring us." Oh crap! I'm going to mess up this word.
Veridically.
Veridically. I did try to practice. I was practicing earlier, and then I forgot. Meaning we accept it as true prior to evaluating it. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah. In the book, I actually developed a metaphor to help understand just the word veridical. Basically, I couldn't find a better word than veridical, right? It's kind of one of those words that it fits good enough for for my purposes. And then it means it means different things. It means something different in philosophy than it does in psychology, and something different in in common parlance or whatever. But for my purposes, I just basically define veridical as us being cognitive misers, right? We just take information in, and unless something is clearly wrong with that information, and what's clearly wrong will obviously depend on our past experiences, the beliefs we've accumulated over the years, what we've learned, what we've seen, anecdotes we've listened to or whatever. Unless it clearly violates that, then we're going to just treat it as true, because our brains are lazy and they want to do as little work as possible. So the metaphor I developed is like thinking about it like a vending machine, right? So when you take a dollar bill, legal tender, right, and put it in a vending machine, the vending machine accepts the bill unless there's something obviously wrong with it, right? If there's something obviously wrong with that bill, then it's going to shoot it back out.
I hate that.
Right? Right? So in this scenario, the bill is analogous to information, right? So unless there's something obviously wrong with the information that's coming in, the brain just accepts it as true, right? And as you know, counterfeit bills can, bypass the vending machine's instructions, right?
I don't know anything about that. You have nothing to prove it. You weren't there. I just have a good copier.
The same is true with false information, right? False information can present itself as a counterfeit bill that can bypass our critical thinking skills or our level of metacognition, to where false information can get past this, right? And another way I push this metaphor is that, if it's legal tender, we all know that you sometimes just smooth out that bill and feed it back through and it'll go through. And sometimes, purveyors of false information do the same thing. They just take the old arguments, they smooth them out a little bit, and they feed them back to us. And the masses eat that stuff up because it conforms with what they already believe. Or in the vending machine metaphor, it conforms with the programming instructions to accept bills that look like this.
Okay. Yeah. I totally agree. It's really easy to accept information at face value. And we see it all the time. We see people watch the news. We see them watch advertisements. We go to conventions or events, and we see people tell stories, and the audience just eats it up. There's very little questioning. But once in a while, or when you go to a science convention, everyone questions everything, because you have the metaphorical more programming. So people are curious, and when you see that, it makes a big difference when you start looking at little details and picking out things like, wait, that's wrong. That doesn't seem right. And I think it builds with experience. The more experience you get, the more exposure you have to critical thinking and finer details, the more programming, quote unquote, programming you're going to have, and be able to recognize things that are wrong. Perhaps the latest software program, maybe not more programming, but just better firmware upgrade.
Right. Yeah. And I think that kind of touches on what I was saying earlier about getting 20 people organized on a project, right? I mean, what goes into that, right? What goes into getting 20 people to agree on something, right? It never happens. And, you might be have had experiences watching scientists fervently disagree with each other, right? Mm-hmm. And the whole this whole idea that there's like a big conspiracy among scientists and science with a $sign for an S or whatever, that it's some industry that we pay for, when you get into it and you understand how science actually works. Science is not, it's not owned by anybody. It's not a noun, it's a verb, it's a process, it's a way of doing something in order to get as close as we can to the truth about how reality works, right? So the whole idea that science can be bought is undermined every day by scientists arguing with each other about the smallest little details. I mean, the minutia of the arguments, if you actually get down and read them, I mean, they're arguing over trivialities what you and I would consider trivialities. But if you want to know what fundamentally is true, then you have to hash out those details. And that's what scientists are doing behind the scenes. They're not, all right, well, which big pharma company is going to give us the most money to, say this thing or that, it can't happen. I recently wrote a paper actually on vaccine safety, right? If the vaccines are really dangerous, the COVID vaccines, what else would have to be true, right? What else would have to be true? And like, I mean, the most conservative numbers I could possibly come up with was like, it would cost $2 trillion to pay off the scientists just in the United States 2 years worth of salary to lie about this. So they're sacrificing their livelihoods, their lives, their reputations, their licenses, their careers, the safety of their family, their communities, basically everything they have for 2 years salary. And that's $2 trillion, which is 6 times more than Moderna, Pfizer, and Johnson & Johnson are worth combined. Right. So, I mean, how do you think that this could happen? Right. I mean, it just can't happen like that.
All right. On that note, that was good, man. I like that. It's time for the pee break, people. I know there's a few people in the chat room that were waiting for this. So we're going to take a commercial break. It's about 3 minutes long. And when we come back, we're going to take your questions out there in the chat room and put another spotlight on Jon tonight. See if he can answer all the questions. So with that said, I'm going to take this banner off so we can play the whole commercial, and I will see you back here in about 3 minutes from now.
Do satanic cults lurk in the shadows? Can memories of satanic ritual abuse be repressed? Do exorcisms really drive out demons? And are those demons always possessing Zach Baggins? I'm JD Sword, the Satanic Skeptic. Join me on The Devil in the Details as I examine these questions and more, bringing a skeptical and satanic perspective to the paranormal. The Devil in the Details, available on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, and more.
Jeff Ham for us. Jeff Ham for us. Hail Satan. Hail Satan.
Are you tortured by what you see and hear about the paranormal field? Join us as we critically examine and question paranormal claims, science, ghosts, demons, cryptids, UFOs, ghost hunting technology, and much more are all on the table for discussion. 3 Tortured Souls is a video podcast that streams live on Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 Pacific.
3 Tortured Souls.
All right, we are back. How's it going, man? You having fun so far?
Yeah, glad to be here.
Good. I think everyone's having a good time. We got a bunch of questions, and Donna is not back yet because she let the little puppy out. So I'm going to take over the questions and probably screw this up. Anyway, so let's go through. Let's see. I want to go.
Are you sure you might need some energy before you start answering?
Oh, look at you, the local taking advantage of it. All right. That means everybody drinks. All you in the chat room, you drink too. All right, let's put some questions up here. First question is a good one. How's it feel to be in the hot seat, John?
Feels good. I like it. I'm
There you
glad
go.
to be here. I'm privileged to be here. I'm privileged to be where I'm at today. This is not where I imagined I would be, a year and a half ago, for
Right.
sure. It's taken a dramatic turn for the better since I got out, and I'm just trying to, live the best life I can live and appreciate every moment of it, because it's fleeting. People, get sick and die all the time, and car accidents and, cancer. And I mean, one thing or another, just, serendipity, it's just life is so short that I'm trying to appreciate every moment that I have here. When you go to prison for so long, you kind of get a newfound appreciation for the tiniest little things,
Yeah.
the things you don't get for so long, that you're like, man, I really miss driving for so long. I just want, people complain about driving all the time. I'm like, I love driving. I didn't get to do it for so long. I love doing it, and I missed it so much, So yeah, I mean, it feels good. It feels like, a step in the right direction. It feels like, it feels like freedom,
Good. And you mentioned, like before the show, we were talking, and you mentioned something about being accepted by the skeptical community, and you weren't expecting that, to be open arms, and how people didn't care about your background. How's that make you feel? I mean, that's got to be kind of refreshing, I guess.
Yeah. I think when you're when you come from a background like mine, you kind of have this. I mean, there's a stigma one way or the other, right? People are going to anchor to the first bit of information they learn about you, right?
There you go. That's good. I like how you use that.
And it's kind of up to you to either, to frame that differently, or conform with what they already think that class of people is like, or something, and I remember somebody telling me a long time ago that those people in there are bad people, and I'm like, I'm in here. What do you mean? Those people like you can't judge everybody based on where they are. All Africans are not the same. All Americans are not the same. You can't have this kind of binary view of the world where it's this or it's that, which is another logical fallacy. It's, the false equivalence, or the either or fallacy. Almost nothing in life falls into two categories. And typically when you hear somebody say either this or that, they're full of shit, because it's usually there's tons of other options,
She's got to get the puppy in.
Puppy love.
Right in
You
my
love
ear.
it. You love it.
Oh, all right. Are you ready? You good to go? You want to? I'll keep going. Next question. Dun, dun. Yes, no, dead air,
Hold
dead
on
air,
a
dead
second.
air,
Just-
dead air.
Energy.
Have you listened to Krause's podcast?
I have not.
I have not either. I didn't.
No,
know
I haven't.
you had one.
Although I do follow it on Facebook, but I haven't listened to his podcast. No.
Okay.
And I guess that's kind of something I wanted to touch on in the last question too, is like being, accepted despite my background. Lawrence Krauss kind of presents one of those kind of weird situations. So if anybody's unfamiliar with it, Lawrence Krauss had some Me Too allegations against him that were basically confirmed, right? And he was kind of shunned from the skeptical community, and he lost, he had won the American Humanist Association Award, I think the year before, 2 years before, and they took that back, and he had a lot of fallout because of that.
Mhm.
And it's kind of considered like faux pas to, invite him to events or whatever because of these allegations, right? But like mine are way worse. Like what, right? And it's okay for me to have that in my background, having went to prison for 17 years and have that in my background and just everybody's kind of been accepted, and which everybody won't be, of course, but thus far most people have been. And then like why can't Lawrence Krauss be welcomed back? Like, is there a statute of limitations on his misdeeds or whatever?
Don't know. I'm not familiar. It's been a while, but I think it was more of taking advantage of people in physical ways. That is the difference. Because I don't like that. I don't approve. I wouldn't welcome. I liked his work. I like his work, but I don't like him because of that. Because of what he did. And I mean, he was taking advantage of people that in a very, very bad way.
I'm trying to separate the person from the deed, right? So say Lawrence Krauss went to prison before he was a world famed physicist, right? And for these lewd acts that he was accused of, right? Wrote, the physics of Star Trek and Quantum Man and the greatest, the greatest story ever told. What if he did all that while he was in prison and came out and tried to get involved in the skeptical community? I feel like it was kind of a double standard, because you shouldn't hold that against Lawrence Krauss forever, right? I mean, he took his licks. He lost his awards. He, lost some prestige that he had, but it shouldn't be forever. Just like my crime shouldn't be held against me forever.
I understand where you're coming from. I guess it's the what people did. I don't know. I don't have the answer here. I really don't. Are
you like biased, Kenny?
I just said I don't have the answer. I don't have the answer. I don't know what to do here. Because this is something I'd have to look at more. And really get in details and decide for myself what to think and what to feel. I just haven't. I mean, before everything happened, I was in line. I got his autograph, on a book. I attended his lectures. So, I mean, I love the information.
What was he accused of?
Well, I don't want to get into that here.
Well, I mean, but was it years ago or was it current stuff?
It was after the SciCon when we saw him.
He was accused.
I think it was around
what was it?
2017.
Older stuff is what I'm saying.
I don't
was
know.
it current?
I don't know. I don't know all the
Okay.
details, so I don't want to get into it. I don't want to speculate because I don't know.
I'm just asking.
So, but yeah, like I said, I don't have the answer to that. I don't know. I mean,
and I don't know if there is an answer to that. It's just kind of something that I can. I've thought about a lot since it happened to him, and like you said, like. How is it like going from there to being here? It's kind of eye-opening. And when I was in there, you asked if I thought I would be somewhere like this. No. And especially after that happened to Lawrence Krauss, because I didn't know, you don't expect like academics and people who, have been, have, decades long careers in really highfalutin fields, to kind of welcome people with open arms and be forgiving. And really they have with me, which was really unexpected and great, I think. But it seems to be like, I don't know, a bit of a double standard when it comes to, it's just timing, right? If he would have done that a long time ago and reformed, like just because he didn't go to prison and like reform, does that mean he's not reformed? Did he not learn from that mistake? Did he not grow from it? Did he not, I don't know. I don't
know.
But we should give him a fair shake, I think.
I'm always thinking about like things I say, because I know I say a lot of shit and I speak freely about a lot of things. So sometimes I do wonder, like, did I go too far? Is that going to be it? Am I going to wake up tomorrow and like everyone hates me? And
everybody already hates you.
Well, a lot of people hate me, but fuck them. I don't care.
Yeah, that don't matter.
Yeah, it don't matter. They don't
Everybody
matter.
has haters. It doesn't matter who you are.
No, you know, but
what
like
you do.
sometimes I get into discussions kind of like this where it touches on more of a serious nature. Like I was on a podcast once and we started talking about race and relationships and gay versus straight and stuff like that. And it was out of my wheelhouse. I'm not used to talking about that stuff. So I was trying to articulate what I feel and make sure that I was like, am I saying the right thing? And that's what I kept saying during the interview. Like, I don't know if I'm saying this right. I don't know if I'm getting what I actually feel across, because it's very difficult for me to put into words how I feel, because I love everyone, even the people that hate me.
Yeah, and if you don't have a whole bunch of experience articulating it, then it's
Right.
not.
It's very
probably not
difficult.
gonna come up. Yeah.
And I'm wondering, I'm like, oh shit, am I going to wake up tomorrow and someone's going to be like, your interview, we don't want you anymore. You know, you said this or you said that. You know, and then I'd probably be like, well, I don't give a shit anyway. Shut up. I say what I want to say. Shut up. All right. So let's
You're honest about it.
yeah, I try. Let's see what else. Have you watched Cosmos, the original?
I have not watched Cosmos the original.
I love it.
I know, it's a shame. I've seen bits and pieces of it. I have not watched the original. I think I've seen clips on like multiple documentaries, and then on the new Cosmos, there's a bunch of clips of it, but I have not watched the original.
Okay.
Send it.
Oh, send it. Let's watch it. So it seems like you are in a better place post prison. What do you attribute to that? That's the original John without an H.
What do I attribute being in a better place to?
I think
So
getting to the better place where you are
do
right
I just
now.
take all the credit? Do I just take? I mean,
Yeah.
What
I mean,
do I attribute it to? I mean, I think that's kind of a hard question to pin down. What do I attribute it to? The things I thought about while I was in prison, the things that I learned while I was in prison, the decisions that I made, kind of how I set myself up to what I was getting into when I got out, and sticking with that plan. I guess I
think it's you.
Yeah.
It is you. You.
I mean, it can't be nobody else, right? I mean,
well, you know what? You can get inspiration along the way, but I think from what I've learned about you and what I'm hearing, you made the decision. You had that turning point where you're like, I'm going to do this, and you stuck with it, and that became your drive. And I mean, once you get that, and believe me, I know how that feels.
Oh,
Once you get that in your sights, you're like, there is nothing else that's going to stop me from doing this. And I think you had that.
Yeah, I agree.
So you're sitting right where you are right now
because
of you.
Yeah.
So good job.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the question, John Michael.
Okay.
All right.
I don't know if John Michael knows this, but my first name is John Michael.
You're like twinsies.
I know. I just don't have a space between them, but it's the same.
All right. Can you comment more about the library education center in the prison where you were incarcerated? If you could improve that library or education program, how would you do it?
So Wyoming, I was in prison in Wyoming, and Wyoming has 5 facilities, four male facilities and 1 female facility. And I've been to 3 of the male facilities, and they're not all the same. So there's not really an education center either. For instance, the state penitentiary in Rollins doesn't have a library, which that's probably going to shock a lot of people, right? The prison does not have a library. So basically what they have is they have these little metal carts that have, a bunch of Louis L'Amour books on it. They get pushed around, shuffled around the pods. And that's the library. They don't really have much as far as that goes. the other two facilities, they have libraries and they're decent. And what would I do to improve it, right? So one of the things I said earlier was I tried to get the prison to order a bunch of great courses to put in the library. And I mean, the great courses are phenomenal. They're
yeah, they're really good.
For the autodidactic learner, they are phenomenal. They're great. They're basically, you can get what a college degree, or somebody with a college degree knows. You can get it in your living room, for the most part. I mean, obviously there's a lot that goes into that. That you can't get from watching DVD lecture series, but they're great. So I pushed really hard to get a lot of those in there. And I mean, while I was in there, I donated basically every book I ever had to the library. Encouraged people to read them.
So when you say that, do you mean like you were getting books from home and leaving them there, or how?
Yeah, so you have a property matrix in there. So you're only allowed a certain number of things, right? You're only allowed 10 pairs of socks or 3 pairs of pants, or I think it was 14 books. So if I had 14 books and I wanted to buy 5 more books, I had to get rid of 5 to get the 5 other ones. So typically I would donate them to the library so that other people, it's available. And like in all the prisons I was in, I always donated all my books, and there's always like a little section of like science books, which is cool because those things did not exist in there before. In the nonfiction, in the nonfiction section, it's like vampires and monsters and astrology, and I mean, this is the nonfiction section, so so it's kind of cool to have a little section for people to. If they want to learn about science and philosophy and critical thinking, they can go to this little section. And, several of the people in the chat room were sending me books and sending me, papers to read and stuff like that. So, I mean, it wasn't just,
that's cool.
Yeah, it was a group effort.
It's like the Jon Guy section.
Yeah. Well, I
Jon
mean,
Guy
that's
section
good
of the
because, I mean,
library.
just think of all the people that you're going to be helping.
Yeah.
Going forward, it's almost like you helping the people that are there because somebody's going to pick that book up.
That's leaving a small legacy because now, more people will learn and maybe get inspired, like you were. So
yeah, hopefully they do.
Awesome.
Yeah,
all right,
that's a great
cool.
Story.
Nice. Next, let's see.
Here we go.
Have you heard of the secret space program? And if so, do you think it's the nuttiest conspiracy theory currently in existence? The secret space program.
I might have, but I haven't heard of it by that name.
I don't know. John Michael, what are you talking about? I don't know. I mean, I don't know what this is.
Okay.
I don't think I've ever heard of this. Let's say, from your experience, how do inmates react to critical thinking?
They fight it with swords.
Really?
No. I think in my experience doesn't really count for anything, right? It'd just be anecdotal, and it'd be a tiny data set, and it would be contingent upon my relationship with those people and how the information is presented or whatever. So it's just tiny. So my experience doesn't really matter. But in my experience, people are kind of receptive to it. They like the concepts. They like the ideas. I've had, countless conversations with people who have told me like, dude, you completely changed how I view the world, and
That's awesome.
And that's great. It's just it. And some guys, it's been like, I had conversations with them over years about chemtrails or aliens or whatever it may be, and then finally they just hit a breaking point. They're like, it doesn't make sense anymore. I listened to you a long time ago, and it's not like I don't have, I don't have a dog in the fight. I'm not trying to like convince you that auras aren't real so that I could sell you anti-aura or something. I'm just trying to get you to understand reality on reality's terms, and it's like, for me, like, being scientifically literate is so liberating. It's just such a different way of understanding the world and like appreciating the garden without the fairies in it,
Right.
What if you like the fairies?
Well, if you like the fairies, then of course you can have the fairies. But it's nice to know that, like, I don't want to use the word enlightening. It's almost like seeing a different layer or another layer of reality, because the before time where I used to believe in pretty much everything, there was that almost like just like a bubble. It was like a bubble I was in, because everything was like, all right, I knew everything. I knew everything I needed to know, and had no idea that there was so much more information out there. And I think once I started like getting hooked on photography and learning how cameras work and how film works and digital sensors, it was like this bubble expanded and expanded and expanded. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's so much more to this world than just what I thought. This is amazing. And that was my gateway drug. I was totally addicted, and I wanted to learn everything about everything. Even though I know it's an impossible task, I'm still going to try, and that's where I am. So
yeah, David Icke would disagree.
well, fuck David Icke. I don't care. I don't like his name.
You don't like his name? Oh, okay. You don't like his name.
That's it. That's a total bias. I'm going to judge him completely on his name, which I don't like. All right. Bob wants to know, why do you say chiropractic medicine is quackery? I am not disagreeing, and I will never get it done, but I just want to hear your take on it.
So why is chiropractic quackery? Well, because it's not based on sound scientific methodology. It's, chiropractic is the idea that pretty much all human ailments are caused by subluxations in the spine, and by manipulating these subluxations that you can, relieve, basically everything, which is why chiropractor, like mainstream doctors, there's this misconception that they want to, get you addicted to pills or, have you keep coming back. A doctor's goal is to get you to not come back. They want to make you better. A chiropractor's goal is to get you to come back repeatedly, which they do, because what they provide is a temporary relief from some sort of symptom, right? There's tiny bits of gas that build up in your bones, and when those are released from the chiropractor popping them, it feels good for a minute, right? Which is why you never get better from what a chiropractor is treating you for, and you always have to go back, and the relief is always temporary. So I know chiropractic right now is kind of split into a couple of different factions, and they are kind of trying to make their way into mainstream media, but their methodologies are still failing. As far as I know, every systematic review has ever gone over the data for chiropractic has shown that chiropractic doesn't perform, and it can be very harmful. Ed Ernst has written tons about it. Harriet Hall has written tons about it, that it can be positive. There was a porn star that just died from chiropractic like 2 weeks ago. I mean, it's not.
Well, we got to look into this.
It's not. It's not harmless. It's not harmless, and it's not based on good science.
I think there's definitely. I mean, I'm not an expert in this. I think there's. You have classic chiropractic, which is exactly what you're talking about. It's the adjustments can fix pretty much any ailment, and then you have the more, from what I see, is more modern chiropractic, which is more like physical therapy. I really don't see too much difference. I had physical therapy done, and sometimes when I've gone to a chiropractor, that's what they've done to me. It's physical therapy, so I get it. And if you go to classic chiropractic to try to get something fixed, when you really need science-based medicine to really get in there and do some more intensive or invasive work, you could be potentially harming yourself greater as time goes on.
Yeah, and I just want to touch on something you said, that if you go to a physical therapist and they do something that a chiropractor would have also done, that doesn't make chiropractic science-based. It just means that they are incorporating something that is science-based into what they do. But the underlying principles that chiropractic is based on is not scientific.
Okay. So I'm seeing these headlines, and I'm going to have to go into it more. Katie May, Playboy model, dead after her chiropractor allegedly ruptured an artery in her neck.
Wow.
Oh, that was from 2016. That might not be the right one. Wow. There's a lot came up. Well, I guess when you put porn star in Google search, that's the wrong thing to put. Never mind. I have more research to do on this topic. Oh, boy. And I see the chat rooms on fire talking about chiropractic. That's great. Bob says, should the CDC and FDA be trusted? The CDC especially kept getting the COVID-19 virus wrong and continues to do so. I call it the corporate disease control. They seem to base a lot of their conclusions on what corporations want them to say. I don't know. The CDC? I don't think so. I know the World Health Organization was messing up a little bit, but I don't know about the CDC. This is out of my wheelhouse. I don't know.
So I can touch on. I don't really understand what the CDC got COVID-19 virus wrong and continues to. I don't really know what that means. But should they be trusted? No. They should not be trusted. Nobody should be trusted. Data should be trusted, right? So one of the things that, if you're going to be scientifically literate, if you're going to be information literate, if you're going to be media literate, you have to know how to vet information, how to vet data, right? So can you say that the CDC is infallible and the FDA are infallible and they just can't make mistakes? No, absolutely. Because anything that's a human enterprise is going to be sullied with the human element, right? Because we make mistakes all the time. Should the data that the CDC put out be trusted? Vet it. Learn how to vet data. Learn how to understand it. Learn how scientific methodology works, and learn what confounding variables are, and systematic reviews, and learn how the peer review process works, and learn how to understand that kind of thing. So no, I don't think anybody should be if you say the CDC or FDA should be trusted by virtue of them being the CDC or the FDA, then you're committing a logical fallacy called the argument from authority, right?
Yeah.
You can't say that the CDC should be trusted because they're the CDC, but look at the data and learn how to analyze the data and learn how to vet that data and where it comes from and what are their methodologies. Look at the methods section and see if that makes any sense to you.
Right. That's good. Yeah. All right, cool. And I just want to really touch on quickly, Tiffany, in the chat. Oddly, the chat focused on or latched on to chiropractics and not the porn. I know. I was surprised about that too. Like I was like going back and forth about that. I'm like, nobody's touching on the porn. What the hell?
What the hell?
Is this a bar or what?
Like there's not enough energy.
All right. Melissa says, do you plan on doing anything with inmates on critical thinking? I was actually thinking the same thing.
So right now I have a proposal with the Wyoming Department of Corrections to adopt my book as part of a curriculum to have an inmate-led group on critical thinking. And I'm kind of starting there. There's getting a bureaucracy like a prison to do anything. It's an uphill battle, and it can take a long time, and especially introducing something from the inmate populace, right? It's not like they're just going to welcome me with open arms and say, hey, we just love what you're doing and we think it's right for us, so yeah, I do plan on trying to develop either get my book into there or develop a stronger curriculum that's more tailored for them, which I think would be great. I mean, I think critical thinking needs to be taught everywhere from grade school up, you know.
Absolutely.
I mean, Guy P. Harrison makes several compelling arguments that's exactly what we need to do. I mean, to say that critical thinking could fix all the world's problems, it's not that far off. You know, I mean, it's not going to fix everything, but it can fix a lot of things. You know.
Yeah. I think it would help. It would help do away with a lot of quackery. It would help save people money, time, lives.
Fucking government.
I mean, it would help, and I agree with you. I think it should be taught in grade school. You know, that should be one of the subjects that you take during the day, and in high school, that's one of your classes. Critical thinking, how to think, not just what to think.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, take the legal system. You know, for an example. I mean, everything we know about eyewitness testimony says that it's almost always wrong. You know, I mean, a confident eyewitness is right. Like, I think 65% of the time. Don't quote me on the numbers, but it's close to that, right? And then a less confident eyewitness is correct like 30% of the time. Wow. But despite the fact that we know this, very few courts are incorporating caveats in their jury instructions to tell the jury that, hey, look, this is an eyewitness testimony. Eyewitness testimonies are not that credible. And we have a storytelling bias, right? We tend to think that people who are telling a story are telling it honestly and sincerely, right? And and when you have a witness up there who's trying to honestly recant something and has no reason to lie, or basically has no interest, no dog in the fight, right? We're more compelled to believe them, but they could be mistaken because of the foibles of memory and belief and contamination after the event and all these other different facets that go into our cognitive makeup. But the legal system hasn't, they haven't taken hold of that. So if we instill the values of critical thinking in not just science, but in law and in all the fields where people are, politics, political science. If people have these values instilled in them and this mindset and this knowledge, we can do away with things like eyewitness testimony. Like if a court of law more accurately reflected a peer-reviewed journal, we would probably have more accurate convictions than we actually do, and that would decrease the burden on the taxpayer. It would decrease the burden on the prison system, So, I mean, they have real world effects that can, reach out across many different dimensions of our society.
I noticed that you were having trouble saying that word. It must be that homeopathic alcohol.
I know.
It's starting to take effect. He's slurring his words. He's like, yeah. Easy on that water. All right, we're starting to chip away at some of these questions. We still have more. This is good.
Some of them aren't all questions, though.
Oh, okay. All right. Can we talk about the poisoning the well fallacy? Then.
Yeah.
Poisoning the well. That's your cue. Go ahead.
Yeah, poisoning the well is kind of similar to, we could say similar to anchoring or the framing effect, right? So poisoning the well is like, saying something bad about your opponent in an argument in order to try to get people to judge their argument based on that bad piece of information that you gave to them, right?
Right.
So you're poisoning the well, right? Don't listen to Jon Guy. He was in prison, right? And then you're like, oh yeah, prisoners are bad people. They make bad decisions. Why would I listen to somebody who's a bad person who makes bad decisions? So poisoning the well is kind of it's one of those fallacies that's just kind of a deceptive, tactic that people use to try to curry people to their side of the argument by not attacking the argument itself, but going after some characteristic of the person or some part of that person's history that sullies, what they're trying to say.
Yeah. Ad hominem. I mean, that's
it would fall into the branch of ad hominem.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily, because you don't necessarily have to be poisoning the well of the person, right? You can be poisoning. So I mean, there's different dynamics to it, but yeah, for sure, it would definitely primarily fall under the ad hominem branch, which is, a lot of fallacies will.
Right. I would get it mostly when I attend like paranormal conferences and stuff. I would get it upon walking in. People would be like, well, you're just a skeptic, we're not going to listen to you. Or when I do converse with people, that's usually what they say. Well, I heard stories about you. You're a skeptic. You're closed-minded. You don't believe anyone. You just like to ridicule people. So all of this information they were getting from other people was poisoning the well, my well, and until I got there and was able to talk to them and convince them otherwise, hopefully.
Yeah.
And then I give them alcohol and they love me. So everything works out. That's my plan. Just get everyone drunk and they like me. All right. Moving on. Let's see. Moving on. Since you like philosophy, John, what is the incorrect answer to this question? Can we? Oh, that's the same one.
Huh?
That's the same one.
I hit the button. I'm sorry.
That's all right. I don't know what this means. I'm not.
I don't either. I don't know what this means.
Okay, good.
Whatever.
I read it when it first came up, and I was like, "What's that mean? What is the incorrect answer?" I don't know. 43.
42.
42 is the answer to everything.
Well, why would you say 43? Oh,
because that's not the answer to everything.
I get it.
Yeah, there you go. I got it. All right, what else we got?
Slow. I've always been slow.
Can you please do an audiobook? Ooh.
So the plan for Think Straight right now is that I'm going to be the narrator for the audiobook version.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, and that I had to fight for that in my contract actually. And I shouldn't say it like that because it wasn't a fight. I suggested it and they said yes.
That's not a fight.
No, it wasn't a fight. I shouldn't frame it that way. But
okay.
Well, for you to read it, right?
Yeah, I wasn't originally the narrator for the audiobook, but I don't know when the plans are to have me start recording that. Okay. I do know that the plan is not to have that released simultaneously with the print version.
Okay. Cool. That's good. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah.
Well, you have a great voice for it. So.
Yeah, you do have like kind of a good radio voice kind of thing where I can listen to you. I can listen to you for a couple
Morgan
hours.
Freeman-esque.
Wow. I like Morgan Freeman. I can listen to him talk about anything.
He's the best narrator voice we've had. He's awesome.
All right. Moving on. What about the eyewitnesses who saw Jesus return to life? That's all fact. Shut up, John Kennedy. Now he's messing around. Is that the puppy?
Yeah.
Where's the puppy?
She's all pissed off about something. I don't know. She's looking at the door.
All right. Next question.
It's for Kennedy.
What is with the beard? It's been a year. I'm not telling you. No, I just like it now. So it's staying. It's staying for the foreseeable future. I like it.
Kenny's room is haunted. The dog's not liking it.
There's a t-shirt for you. Scientific literacy is liberating. I like that. It is. Yeah. It really is.
Yeah,
I like
that one down.
I have the one that says being scientifically literate empowers you to know when other people are full of shit.
Ooh, yeah, I like that.
I love it. I mean, it really does.
Yeah.
That's good.
Okay, so let me see.
That's it, I think, right? That's all
Wait,
the questions.
Freeman isn't our guest tonight.
Kenny is a silver fox. That's right.
Ones.
All right, cool. We can get into the announcements then.
Unless anybody has any.
If you
miss anything or
if you have any questions, this is last minute. Get them in. Oh, where we go? Should logic and
epistemology be taught in the history of philosophy?
Hey Jay.
I think yeah. I mean, if you're going to have a basic understanding of what knowledge is, then you have to know what epistemology is, right? You have to study epistemology. And I mean, part of the methods of understanding epistemology is learning how a proper argument is structured, which you have to learn logic for. So I think so, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it should be taught. All of this should be taught in school, like not college or electives. It should be taught in at least freshman high school, like starting out. But even sooner, critical thinking classes should be taught sooner than that, because that's a way of life. I mean, that really sets the stage, and the younger you can get, the impressionable nature. I mean, I think you really should instill these values of how to think, and not just what to think. I mean, we talked about it when Melanie was on, and we were talking about thinking is power, like how all education is basically, here are facts, memorize them. You know, and we want to know how to figure out the information ourselves, because that's it. I don't want to just give you the information, because we have that. We have lazy people, and I think because of the education system, you have lazy people that come out and say, "Oh, how do you do this? What does this mean?" Well, you know, the same technology you're using to email me that question, you have freaking Google. Look it up. You know, take the few minutes and do it. They just want someone to tell them how to do things. And I think if we get those skills into people at a young age, it stays with you throughout your life, and it just evolves. It gets better and better, because you mentioned it in the beginning. This is a learned skill. This is not something that you're born with. It's not something that you just read a book and you're like, oh, well, now I'm a critical thinker. I know what I'm doing. No, you read a book, you learn a little bit, you start getting it, you practice it, and over the years it becomes better and better. So
I think James Alcock in his book Belief, he really hit home when I read his analogy was great. So he basically said that, like, most of us understand that we can talk naturally, right? It comes natural. We learn it, and we do it pretty easily, right? But in order to speak well, we have to learn things like grammar and syntax, and, you know, the basic fundamentals of speaking, right? So you don't just learn those things just by talking, even though you can talk without any kind of, you know, training, right? And so it is with our brains. We can all think, right? We all just think, right? But in order to think critically, you have to learn the necessary skills to understand the concepts of metacognition, right? You can't just, a friend of mine tried to compare critical thinking to being a great musician, right? Because people sometimes can just pick up, you don't have to be able to read music theory just to be able to be a great guitarist, right? And it superficially, that sounds like it's legit, right? Because you can become a great musician without understanding how to read a single chord, right?
Right.
But critical thinking is not the same thing. You know, the human mind is not a guitar. It's not a set of drums. You can't understand it without learning the things that make us believe what we believe and lead us astray. And you know, intuitively, we thought the earth was flat. We would have never, you know, understood the idea of microbes or moving continents or anything like that, because intuitively those things don't make any sense to us. So yeah, I think it's really important.
Okay, here's a question from Melissa.
Backtracking a little bit, what about the doctors who do want you to keep coming back? Prime example, my back was messed up in 2015. I was put through the ringer for 9 months that ended up causing my condition to get worse.
So I really, that's be a hard question to answer, because I don't know the specifics. And I mean, assuming that this doctor did want you to come back and just genuinely couldn't treat your ailment, I would say he's a bad doctor. You know, there's doctors who graduated at the bottom of their class, just like there's doctors that graduated at the top of their class. And maybe he was one of the ones that graduated at the bottom of his class, or maybe he has some, you know, financial incentive to you know, keep you coming back. I don't know. And you know, I guess I shouldn't have framed it the way I did, as saying doctors don't want you to, you know, mainstream doctors, because there's bad people everywhere. You know, there's bad people and there's incompetent people everywhere. So to say that but in general, in mainstream medicine, the goal is to do no harm, right? To not to fix your ailment, to cure whatever it is that's bringing you into their office. Whereas I think the conversation was about chiropractic. Their goal is to get you to come back because that's how they make their money.
Yeah, and there's other complications. I mean, like you said, we don't know the specifics. And if you do have some, and I'm talking in general terms here, if you have some kind of injury and you get a treatment, you're going to have to come back to make sure that treatment worked. Or if you need more treatment. So there's so much to get into. This is a topic onto its own, and not anything that either of us are qualified to really talk about. So we would actually need a medical doctor, Stephen Novella.
Great.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I'm going to try and get him on. He's on my list to reach out and see if I can get him on. But yeah, that's a big topic, big topic. So, all right. So your book, Think Straight: An Owner's Manual for the Mind. It's coming out
hopefully in July.
Yeah, July-ish.
July-ish. According to Amazon, it's going to be released on August 23rd. And hopefully I'll have my copy sooner than that. I have pre-ordered it. I'm going to put the link to pre-order in the chat room again, because I'm already there. I'm just got to wait till it shows up at my door, and then I will read it. And I will say, this is a, take it how you want. This is a non-biased review so far, but I read chapter 1, and I love it. I was reading it at work, which I really shouldn't have, and it was kind of where I was like, I set things up so nobody could see me because I was like, I want to keep reading this. I just want to keep reading it. It was really good. You touched on a lot of subjects within that first chapter. You touched on a lot. So I really enjoyed the way it was formatted, framed, your writing style. So I'm looking forward to the rest.
I appreciate it, and I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah. Did that go? It didn't go.
Yeah, I saw it.
Okay. All right. Good.
It all went.
Do you have anything else you want to announce? You have anything coming up? Anything that you're going to do that you want to put out there?
No, not right now. I guess I'm just trying to focus on getting the book promoted, and I got some podcast interviews scheduled. So,
oh, cool.
I got some podcast interviews scheduled, and basically just focusing on this right now. I got a few writing projects in the works, and so yeah. Thank you, Red Man.
Awesome.
If you want, you can. Everything I got going on, my time is really limited. My work schedule is extremely busy right now. Like I was telling you, I'm driving 3 hours to work, and so time is limited. But if you want to follow me on Facebook, you can do so, and that's where I'll probably be announcing the majority of what I have going on.
Cool. Awesome. And John Kennedy just said he does a show on Sunday nights called Let's Learn Shit, and he said anytime you want to come on his show, he would talk to you, and that would be good. That would be fun.
He was talking about that last week too, wasn't he?
I think so. Yeah. He's getting his show off the ground and doing good, getting better each week, and it's a fun conversation. All right.
We'll be in touch then, John.
I'm going to switch gears. Shade it for you. Oh, that's good. John and I will be ordering your book. Awesome. There you go. Yay. I'm going to switch the banner a little bit to my Squid Game Bob's announcements because I changed it up a little bit. I have the announcements coming up on the bottom because it was so hard to change. It was a pain in the butt to change the actual frame. Plus, when I have a guest,
yeah, you can't see them.
This part of the frame was like I had to have to move over this side to see. So there you go. My announcements are coming up. Saturdays, I do a show called Three Tortured Souls with Tim and Dave. 8 p.m. Eastern. Tomorrow, I know we're doing a show. I forget the topic. Which is bad because I know Tim was in the chat room. So
I have Tim's night.
I think it's Dave's night. I don't know. I have to study, but I haven't studied
I
yet.
have
So
to study. Well, that's what you're doing tomorrow. With
and
Skeptic.
then July 16th and 17th is Skeptical Virtual Conference 2022. I'm going to be a speaker for that. I don't know which day I'm speaking, but I'm going to be doing a talk on my journey from ghost hunter to skeptical investigator, and how I'm still involved with the paranormal community. I do all this stuff where I'm in with them guys more than I am with the science community, because I want to help get critical thinking and science and rational, thinking into that community. Let's see what else I got. July 23rd is Para-Unity. That's in Woodbridge, New Jersey. I'll be there. I'll be set up with my Skeptical Help booth. Donna will be set up with her Lucky Tiki Creations. August 19th, 21st, we will be in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania for the Gettysburg Battlefield Bash, which is a paranormal conference, but it also supports Kids with Cancer and the Pennsylvania Wounded Warriors. Both of us will also be there with our tables. Actually, Donna will be there with her Lucky Tiki Creations, and I'll be there with the Three Tortured Souls, so Tim Vickers and Dave Schumacher will be out there with me, and we're going to be causing some trouble.
Yeah.
There's already things that are going to happen. Oh boy. And then finally, October 20th to 23rd is SciCon in Las Vegas, and I'm going out there. I'm going to do some kind of talk. I'm not sure what yet, but I'm scheduled to go out, and I'm excited because I love seeing everyone out there.
I'll see you there. That'll be my first one.
Woo!
Awesome. That's
that'll
great.
be
I
fun.
can't wait then. That's
we get
even
to
better.
hang
We
out.
get to hang out with everybody. Oh,
Yeah.
right. Oh, that's so much fun. So much fun. I love that. All right. Just looking over everything, seeing everyone. It's great. I'm glad everyone came out tonight. And we had a good conversation. I enjoyed the interview tonight with you. So hang out for a minute. I'm going to play my outro video, and I don't want you to hang up. But for everyone else, I want you to have a great weekend. I'll see you next week. Actually, I'll see some of you tomorrow, because I know some of you hang out tomorrow night with us. But otherwise, I'll see you next Friday night.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I don't think I have anything scheduled.
Yeah, I think we're good.
I'll let you know what we're gonna
What's
do.
going on?
And with that, I want to say, never stop learning.
Good
Thanks
night.
for having me.